Greetings everyone and welcome back to another video. I'm going to be taking a look at another cheapo product. Once again, nothing out of the ordinary here, but this is going to be looking at the most expensive item that I purchased off Temu, or Temu, however it's pronounced. I thought it was Temu, but people told me it's Temu. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to be taking a look at the bootleg PlayStation 5. Well, it's not a bootleg PlayStation 5, it's just a thing that looks like a smaller version of a PlayStation 5. That's called the M5, according to a sticker that I found on the box. Now, if you haven't seen the unboxing of the M5 from Temu, wherever, I'll card it up there if you want to take a look at it. And this also serves as a follow-up to the GameStick Lite, which I will talk about that very soon because I do have some updates on that. But before I start rambling on about this console, and I'm going to be showing you the listing as well, there will be timestamps in the description below as well as the pinned comment, so you can skip to the gameplay of this thing or the teardown wherever you would like to. That is all good. And if you need to use ad block, if there's more ads that are put into the video, even when I try and minimize them down, YouTube just automatically puts them back in. Feel free to use ad block or Revanced on mobile if you need to. That is all good. But before I do show you the listing and go into the details of the M5, so let's go back to the GameStick Lite. Now, if you haven't seen that video, I'll card it up there if you want to take a look at that. And I did ask in that video if there's any way to install custom firmware on it. A good friend of mine and longtime moderator of this channel, Pancake Sparkle, pointed me in the right direction to some custom firmware that had been made by some Russian folks over on the 4PDA forums. And it's a port of RetroArch. I flashed it to the GameStick Lite, and sure enough, I now have RetroArch on there with a whole bunch of ROMs, and things run pretty well. So if you do want to see a follow-up video to the GameStick Lite showcasing what it looks like now and how it runs, and how you can flash RetroArch on the GameStick Lite to actually get a lot more features out of it, then I'm happy to do a follow-up video. But otherwise, yes, you can do custom firmware. It has to be a specific version of the GameStick Lite. I'm pretty sure if you have one already and it's the same version as mine, the same box and everything, it should work. But if you want to see a follow-up, please let me know. The next thing also is the Powkiddy V90 that I got off Temu, or Temu. I'm used to saying Temu, I'm sorry. It's dead. I was playing it for about 10 minutes, the screen started to go dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and I thought I'll plug it in, plugged it in, and then it was dead. Tried to charge it, no LED, thought okay, maybe the battery and it's cooked. So I tried my test BL5C battery, didn't do anything. I charged up the battery that was in the Powkiddy, put it back in, dead. So I have absolutely no idea what's gone wrong with it. I will stuff around with it another day. Bit unfortunate that it's kind of dead, but I also realized that I have a Retroid Pocket 2 and my Anbernic console that I could play emulators on. The D-pad is not the greatest on this when it comes to like Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. This is much better, but the thing is this has an MT6580 in it, and that's horrendous, but it has a 4000 mAh battery and it plays absolutely everything that I need. So I'd probably rather just use this instead of the Powkiddy. Even though it's a bit more heavier, it's got a lot more quality than the Powkiddy. So I'll just stick to these. Alright, enough rambling about other products. Today we're going to be looking at the 2022 new M5 P5 Game Console Video Game Box 20,000 Retro Arcade Games built-in speaker 2.4G wireless controller for PS1, CPS, FC, and GBA. And currently this is $68.94 on AliExpress, but I got mine off Temu for $63 Australian, which it's double the price of the GameStick Lite, and it basically offers the same quality as far as I can tell. And obviously with this, I'm not going to promote this and say to purchase one because it does come with a micro SD card full of ROMs and stuff like that. So not promoting this in any way, I don't endorse that, but it's just a big grey area promoting products that have a whole bunch of ROMs on them. I just rather avoid that sort of thing. But as you can see from the picture, it looks like a small little PS5, except extremely cheap. And I've looked at the GS5, which is a Famiclone instead of something that plays a whole bunch of games. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll card it up the top if you want to take a look at that, because that didn't offer too much, whereas this offers a little bit more than that did. Supposedly, this does 4K. We will test to see if it can output in 4K or not. Now, the photos from the listing that I'm going to show you, I got from a couple of listings of the M5. So we've got this one here which says Ultra HD 4K handheld game console. Support doubles. Buy now, with a guy on his motorbike just doing a 6 skid there. Handheld game console. Yes. Handheld. Sure. Then we have high definition picture quality, enjoy playing games, connect the HDMI connector of the TV monitor, the smart HD chip can be used for lossless transmission and can be clearly displayed in any size with double battery and Rocker Game Machine. And there it is, there's the console with Street Fighter, genuine arcade display, high definition fluency, picture conspicuous. Picture conspicuous? Okay, but the one on the right is assemble arcade display, fuzzy cat on. What? Okay. And dim picture. If that made sense to you, then kudos to you, because this is just the usual broken English that we find on AliExpress and all the other sites. The powerful multi-core processor. The intelligent system is easy to operate. Can be archived. Massive game. Searchable. HDMI HD output. Collectible. Expand the TF card. Can add support to download. And the chip doesn't even have anything on it. It's just a sophisticated piece of futuristic technology that doesn't exist inside this unit. At least it's blue though. Durable rocker and wear resistant key, omnidirectional game feel, and there's the controller there, which you've seen in the unboxing video, but I'm going to be unboxing this again very briefly because I wanted to take a look at a few other details on the box that I missed. All-round compatibility, plug in and play, support multiple devices and multiple scenes to play. The big TV in the living room, the computer monitor in the study, and the projector in the bedroom are all supported. With TV set, projector, computer, support data conversion, monitor, and notebook. Doesn't support a graphoscope. That's sad. M5 wireless rocker game machine, support for 2 people to play together. Supports CPS, which was a Capcom arcade system, I believe. Someone did tell me, but I've forgotten. Famicom, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Mega Drive, Super Famicom, and PlayStation 1. And there is our fella there with these 2 controllers, just looking cheap, as they do. This picture, 52mm, 2.05 in horn unit. Okay, horn unit. Yes, it's a horn unit. It's not a speaker, it's called a horn unit, alright? Strong ground sound wave, or this is all in one word here, 52mm 2.05 in HD loudspeaker, providing powerful bass output, strong and powerful trembling heartstrings, open a concert in your ears. There's a speaker at the bottom just woofing out the sound there. If you're wondering as well, why does this have a speaker built onto it? That's because if you had a computer monitor that just had HDMI and no speakers built into it, this would play sound, thus giving you a wider range of being able to play it on, you know, a very generic monitor that has HDMI. You can hook this up to it and you've got the volume controls on the front of this unit to adjust the sound. But that is all of the listing and all the pictures that I wanted to show you. Let's go ahead and take a look at the box again, go around it quickly, and then we can go ahead and start testing out the M5 and see if it's worth the asking price or if it's a hunk of plastic with a small circuit board in it. Probably that, but let's take a look and see. Here is the box. I can't quite fit it all in frame, but I'm sure you can put it all together. But right here, I didn't even see the sticker. Model is the M5 with the manufacturer just there and their address as well. And then there's also a UK address for it, and it has a Buster. That's good. I didn't even notice this, but it's got G-A-M-E printed right on there. Didn't even see this shininess that they've put on there. There's our Pro Gamer at the top there, looking good, just called Game. And we have our double rocker control professional game chip, classic games of 4K Ultra HD. If this does output in 4K, I'll be pleasantly surprised. And the 4K Ultra Clear, support up to 40 kinds of classic simulators to play classic nostalgic games. On the back, same thing, just another picture of the M5, but we do have some warnings down there, and you need to be 14 years old to play this. The product features double hands. Sometimes the controls are called handles, sometimes they're called hands, so just agree with it. Support 40 simulators, open source system, and dual. Oh, that's it. I thought it continued on. Okay. Original 3D rocker, special game rocker for arcade, high sensitivity anti-skid design, same as what we've seen on the GameStick Lite. Support 40 simulator games, compatible with 10,000 games, and can download games by yourself. High fidelity, high bass, restore delicate and clean original sound. So in other words, we have a big spurker in this. Bless the DJ1000. The operation system is Linux RetroArch. Now, I was stuffing around with this last night, and I did work out that if you connect a keyboard up to it and press Control and Escape, you can bring up a little menu, which looks a little something like this. And that mini GUI was featured in the system files for the GameStick Lite. So it's got mini GUI on top of something, but we're not too sure what exactly it is. And I've plugged the microSD card into a Linux machine to see what other partitions are on it, and it's only just one partition, which looks a little something like this, pretty much the same as the GameStick Lite. So we did try and work out to see if this does have custom firmware available for it, and I did try the one for the GameStick Lite in this, but it didn't boot up. So we will have to investigate it when we tear this down and see what we can do. With the emulators, MAME, Famicom, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Mega Drive, Super Famicom, PS1, Atari 2600, and Atari 7800. The CPU once again is the GB2. Garbage Bogus 2. No. Giant Bullshit 2. That'll do. And TF card support up to 128 gigabytes. But this comes with a 64 gig one. After I finished the original unboxing, I did find the wireless dongle just in there. So I've already plugged that in, so that's all good to go. But controller-wise, that's what the controllers for the M5 look like. I'm really interested to see what they've done with the fake triggers, because there's definitely a lot of sponginess to them, but it feels like there could be a spring in there possibly. But just as a comparison, here's a real PlayStation 5 controller and the knockoff one. This weighs about 5 times as much as this. I mean, everything looks not really in the same place. It's got the same layout for the most part, kind of. They got the color scheme correct. I'll praise them for that. But these are likely the same controllers from the Game Stick Lite because they do work on the Game Stick Lite. But we'll definitely tear them down when we get to that. The unit itself, which there's nothing really too much to look at. We've got a power button, the volume button for the speaker, 2 USB ports, and I think a reset button there. Let's see if it's a reset button. I don't know what that is. Doesn't feel like a button. There's a big Spurker there, and then our 5-volt micro USB, HDMI port, and our micro SD card of 64 gigabytes with all the ROMs that are included with this thing. Finally, the instructions. Is there anything funny to have a look at in here? The appearance view, hardware description, function description. That's all looking like the Game Stick Lite, I think. Yep. Yeah, I don't see anything funny on there, but if you can see anything, feel free to pause the video if you want to. But it's better if we just hook this thing up and start taking a look at it. But first course of action, let's see if it actually outputs in 4K. It's hooked up to my 4K TV, and that's what it looks like. If we go up a little bit close, it's looking a little something like that. It doesn't look the best, so let's try. It's 720p. Same as the Game Stick Lite. 4K, yes. That's what you do, 4K. It would have been nice if it at least done 1080p, but stuck with 720p, unfortunately. All right, let me hook this thing up and we'll start exploring the features of the M5. Here we go. We just get loading, then we get the glorious Game Station 4K, which it can't do 4K. But here we go, we've booted it up. So I'm just pointing the camera at the TV because I don't have a capture card, but hopefully this will be perfectly fine for showcasing what this thing can do. At the top we have List, Histor, Favori, Circ, and Categ. So it pretty much has the same layout as the Game Stick Lite with our list of games. And that sound effect, there is a little bonus in this that I couldn't do on the Game Stick Lite. Then we have history of what I've played on this. Then we have favorites, nothing there. Search, which search is kind of a little bit broken. It will work for most games. And then finally we have categories. If you recognize the artwork on the right there, please let me know where that's been pinched from. But if we have a look at the emulators, the icon for Famicom is the PSP, Switch is for MAME, N64 is for Game Boy, Famicom is for Game Boy Advance, MAME is for Game Boy Color, Game Boy is for Mega Drive, Game Boy Advance is for Super Famicom, Game Boy Color is for PlayStation 1, and a Mega Drive Genesis is for Atari 2600. They didn't get any correct there. A for effort. They tried. But there's a button combination that I can do to bring up our settings, and that is just select and start. So we have language settings, but I'll just leave it as English because if I accidentally set it to another language, I'm not going to know how to put it back to English, so we'll just leave that. Then we have File Explorer. Not File Explorer, but File Explorer. I guess A for effort there too. We can access all of the stuff on the SD card. That ADCore file, that was from me, don't worry, I put that on there. But Mini GUI is basically the full system, as far as I can tell, for this system. There's no other partitions on the micro SD card that contain anything else. It's just this. If I go to this, I can open JPEGs. As one of my friends told me, this looks like behind the Walt Disney Castle. And looking at it, I kind of agree with that. At least I can open images. If you want to know, I cannot play MP3 files or videos on this using the File Explorer. I can only open images, unfortunately. So if we go to picture, it just has all the pictures for all the arcade games, just all the default little files and stuff. But going into RetroLib, this shows our libretro cores. Most notably though, Mupen 64 Plus is here, but there is no N64 emulator. So you're probably wondering to yourself, okay, well, is that just a leftover or something like that? No, this thing can actually play N64 games, and I will show you. If I now go to game, it's got all the folders, but yeah, we do have N64 with a Mupen 64 Plus folder and configuration files. Not that I can change anything in there though. But that's it within File Explorer. Key sound effect, I've got it as that, or I can change it to that, or I can change it to this, or this, or this. However, last night I decided to stuff around with the micro SD card files, and I did this. I dicked around with the files on the SD card. So customization works. I will put it to mute so I can save you all the torture of having to listen to the thing go boop 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 every 3 seconds. Now if we go to restore default, it doesn't show the default settings, it shows the aspect ratio for the screen. So we can do full screen mode or equal scale mode. I'm going to put it to equal scale mode because I have a feeling that will be 1-to-1 with the original consoles, but we'll see. If we go to about this console, it says, are you sure you want to restore the default settings? Somebody had fun in this menu. They just kind of put everything everywhere. Quit setup shows that we have the CGAM M5, which that was the same thing as the Game Stick Lite, the whole CGAM thing. And the firmware version is marked 2023. free as well. And then finally, select is just back to select and that's it. Plugging in a keyboard and pressing Control and Escape brings up this. So we have Start, Refresh Background, Close All Windows, End Session, Windows, and About Mini GUI. So at least we know the user interface is called Mini GUI, but we don't know what operating system this is running off. It could be Linux, but I can't access any terminals or anything like that. The only thing I can really do here is refresh the background, which just refreshes, close all windows, reboots the system, and then just shows a loading screen and nothing else. End Session doesn't do anything either. Windows, I can see desktop and main, which selecting either one of them doesn't do anything. But About Mini GUI brings up this, and I thought this was a terminal, but it's not, unfortunately. And then I can use Control and Escape to go back to Windows, and I can change it back to desktop, and then I can use the keyboard to look through all the files of the console. That's as far as I can do with hooking up a keyboard to this. Hooking up a mouse to this, I don't get a cursor or anything. Someone did comment and say, have you tried plugging in a keyboard to the GameStick Lite? And I didn't try that. So I thought I'd try it with this, and that is what I've got. So definitely some interesting things going on, that's for sure. Yeah, it's just gonna stay at the loading screen, so off it goes. Since I was talking about the File Explorer just before, let's go back to that. File Explorer. If I go to the game folder, I can actually play any of the ROMs straight from here, which is fantastic because there's no option for N64 in the actual main interface. So I created an N64 folder, put N64 games in there, and sure enough, we can play N64. At how many frames a second though? Not a lot. Hang on, you'll see graphics soon. There you go. Well, this game is extremely dark, I forgot. Okay, let's just skip that. Look, Doom 64. Can you even see anything on the display? No, hang on. Why did they put the brightness all the way down for? That's so silly. Well, not that you can see what's... I mean, I can barely see what's going on, but... I can play Doom 64 on this. Only problem though, the C buttons aren't mapped to anything. And you can't map the controls any other way. So if I go to the end of this corridor and try to use the elevator, well, I kinda can't because they haven't mapped the C buttons to anything. And the right analog stick is just the face buttons mapped to it, and the analog stick is just the D-pad mapped to it. So I'm stuck with N64. At least it can run it though. You couldn't quite see what's going on there, so let me show you something that you will be able to see. Like Super Mario 64, basically one of the games that will run perfect on any N64 emulator, except for this.
It's me, Mario!
Yes, good. Runs smooth, buttery smooth. 1-to-1 with the original N64. Yeah, that's bad. I mean, to be fair, this didn't have the option for N64 by default. I'm kind of just pushing it. And here we go! But there's a problem. I can't move Mario because the analog stick is supposed to be the analog stick. But because this just has the D-pad mapped to the analog stick, I can't do anything else. I can do this. So that's N64 emulation on this. If I was able to put custom firmware on this, I'm not too sure how it would run, but that's how it runs currently. And also I have noticed that choosing equal scale mode is actually playing the games in the correct aspect ratio, so I don't have to manually change it. Alright, now let's start testing out the emulators that I can access on the main menu, starting with Famicom. And we all know what I'm going to choose straight away. I'll be playing the same games I played on the GameStick Lite, so it gives it a bit of a fair comparison between the two. At least we have a loading bar this time. The other one just said loading and then just didn't do anything else. But does the bar actually move though? Or is it just there for show? Ooh! It does move! There we go! Super Mario Brothers! Let's give this a go. It should run perfectly fine, I'd assume. Is it the correct aspect ratio? Certainly is. Obviously it is upscaled and doesn't quite look the best at 720p, but it is what it is. Can I do the turbo function? Yep, can certainly do that. Runs perfect. Of course it runs perfect. It runs pretty smooth for the most part. There feels like there's a bit of a frame skip going on. It could be just the output of this, maybe. that's causing it, but otherwise, look, it's fine. Now, let's try the big Spurker. TV all the way down. Now, if I come to the console, that's not bad. It's pretty good for what it is, I gotta admit. At the highest volume, it sounds pretty good. There's no distortion at all, but for the sake of it, I'll just use TV sound. 619 pages of NES games. Yes, I say NES and SNES. I'm just used to saying that way. I know it's NES and SNES, but just ignore me saying it the wrong way. Oh, there's Super Mario 14 on here. This is that bootleg game that runs really good. Ah, yes. This looks very Mario. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yep, very Mario. Look at him go. Whee! You can't even jump on the Koopas. You can see the original sprite. Whoops. Yes. Okay. It's powerful enough to play NES games. Let's move on to arcade, which I didn't put any custom arcade games in here, because one of the arcade games I really love is Killer Instinct, but didn't think of putting that in, because that's got video files and stuff like that, so I'm not actually sure how you would install that on this. But it's pretty much all the same games that were featured on the Game Stick Lite, copied and pasted onto this one. So I'll go to Aliens once again, and we'll give this a shot. See if it's as slow as it was on the Game Stick Lite, which I can't stress enough how much custom firmware has improved that thing. So as I said, if you want to see a follow-up video, I'm happy to do one on it. Yeah. Can't say that's any better than the Game Stick Lite. It runs. If that's what you wanted to know. I know the hardware is capable. It's just, this is very jank, so there's not a lot we can really do. Now, we'd assume with a very simple arcade game, that would run perfectly fine. So let's move on to Game Boy, which I'll double this as the Game Boy Color test as well, with Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. There is Super King Kong 1. Okay, here it is. Let's give this a shot. Correct aspect ratio. All looking good. Once again, the button mapping is a little bit all over the place, and you can't change that. Looks the same as the Game Stick, same sort of quality. Controls are also pretty much exactly the same too. A bit of input lag as well, I can definitely notice, as it's not super precise. It's not bad. Oh, I should have put Pokemon Diamond on here. Oh, that would have been really cool to play, because I have not seen that in so long. I won't continue on with Game Boy, because most titles should run fine, but let's try the more demanding stuff, like Game Boy Advance, for example. Driver 3 is on here again, and it's called Car God, right there. I'll just use the properly named one. We'll actually try Doom first, on GBA. Now, it ran on the Game Stick, but does it run better on this? Probably not. I think it'll be the same. There we go. Or maybe a little bit faster, by like 2%. Oh, I take that back. Yep. Speedrun strat, come on man, that should work. Quickly try Driver 3, and that's what the menu sounds like. And here we go. Yep, it's just ticking along. It runs. You can run over people. You can drive around the city, smacking the cars like that. Look, I'll give this a pass. 3D Game Boy Advance emulation on default software. looking a little something like that. I'm convinced it has the same Rockchip CPU in it at this point in time, but I could be wrong though. Let's try Mega Drive and go straight to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which should be called Sonic Kid 2. Was it called Sonic Kid 2? No, just Sonic Kid. Okay. Now this ran pretty much perfect on the game stick. We'll see how it runs now. Good sign. Alrighty. Yeah, pretty good. I reckon there is a frame skip thing going on. And yeah, I tried adding a 32X core into the files just to see if it'd play Doom 32X, but yeah, no, it can't play 32X stuff. Or Sega CD, but I gave it a go. Just thought maybe you could. Mega Drive is perfectly playable on this, so I'm really thinking that it is the same hardware as the game stick, just slightly altered. Really interesting when I get to the teardown to see what the motherboard looks like. Let's try Doom on the SNES. Or SNES, I'm sorry. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about anyways. Okay. Sounding good. Yep. Yee. But it does pick up some speed. What's the buttons? Okay, I've changed weapons again. It's sad Doom. Quickly try Donkey Kong Country. I have a feeling the button mapping's the same. Yes, it is. Claw configuration and smooth, laggy, smooth, laggy, smooth, laggy, smooth, laggy. With basic SNES games, you might be okay, but yeah, this is looking basically like the Game Stick Lite. It's running exactly the same. And this is $30 more. Just because it looks like a PS5, kind of. We're at the gauntlet now. PlayStation 1. The most demanding of them all. I'll try Driver on this as well. We'll go to survival mode and see how long I last. How does the menu sound? Ignore the birds. That's a bit better. I feel that this actually runs a bit better. Sounds a bit choppy. Oh, there we go. I mean, oh, Driver is generally a very laggy game as it is. But I think it actually does perform ever so slightly better than the Game Stick on its stock firmware. Okay, now that there's a lot of stuff going on, you can hear the choppiness. I'll try Crash 3 to see if this runs any different, and then we'll be left with the Atari 2600, and that's pretty much the showcase of this one. Pretty much all looking the same as the Game Stick. Nothing different, except for a different UI. Okay. I mean, it's playable. I'm pretty sure this does run faster than the Game Stick. Not by much though. I'm using the analog stick and oh boy, it's horrible. It's just not very accurate. It's pretty laggy for the most part, but it's playable. It's not as super laggy as it was on the Game Stick, but if you're spending $60 on this just to play PlayStation 1, probably not worth it, and I fell. Finally, time for Atari 2600. Oh boy, I've added one 2600 game that I want to showcase to you all, and that of course is E.T. I drew that. I tried to give it as much nightmare feel as possible. Did I succeed? Also, I renamed it to something very appropriate. Let's see how this runs. Yep. Kudos to the guy who made this in 6 weeks. Also, kudos to this game for causing the video game crash of 1983. And they thought they were going to sell millions of these. Oh boy, they were wrong. They were very, very wrong indeed. We're done. Oh god, I'll just leave it on that screen. There you go, enjoy that. We're done with the game showcase with the M5. While I can see some improvements, they are only very, very minor, and that was most notably in PlayStation 1 emulation, but I have a feeling it's exactly the same thing, copied and pasted from the GameStick Lite onto this with a different user interface, and we know it's mini GUI that's on top of this. I think we're going to get a better idea of what's going on when I tear it down to see if there's any model numbers or anything that might put us in the right direction. I'll just do the conclusion now. If you wanted to pick this up for $60 to play retro games, don't do it. It's not worth it. The GameStick Lite is half the price. While there are performance issues, with the custom firmware that you can put on it, it makes it worth it now. With this and the possibility of custom firmware being non-existent, this is a big novelty. But the big speaker in it does sound pretty good. Is that worth the extra $30 though? And you get the updated controllers, which don't really offer too much else. It's honestly not really worth it. As I said in the conclusion with the GameStick, your smartphone can play all of the emulators shown today at full speed and with a Bluetooth gamepad. Perfect. Or you can use on-screen controls if you wanted to, if you're into that. There's not much else we can really do here. So let's go ahead and tear this apart and see what's inside this thing. I hope that conclusion wasn't too rambly, but I can't really say much more since it's basically the GameStick Lite in a different shell. But now let's investigate this thing, and I'll tear down the controller first and get a good look at what's inside of this. Is it going to be the same innards? I wonder. They probably will be. With all these screws taken out, it should just pop open and there we go. And it's the same. There's no springs actually for the top. It's just the triggers, well, I say triggers, just have a lot more travel to them to make it seem like they're a trigger, but they're not. Well, they fooled me. Well, that is different. I forgot that the buttons are actually clicky buttons and not membrane buttons like on the GameStick. We have CXH W5H. So that is more than likely the model for this, but the PCB is definitely different, that's for sure. All right, well that's this one then. Okay, with that back together, for the most part, kind of, it'll be fine. Oh, there we go. Now let's move on to the main feature, this thing. How do we take it apart? With no screws to get inside of this thing, I guess we just brute force our way into this then. Got it. Okay, well sure enough. It's the same rock chip. But wait a second. What's this that we have? Well, it's a WX1 Pro is what is on the motherboard there. Then we have the front connectors. Oh, that's the LED, not a reset switch. The big spurker just there, which, you know, that does its thing. But yeah, same rock chip RK3032. The module that's in here is a 2 gigabit module, which means 256 megabytes of RAM this has. So we have double the RAM. But what I'm looking at here though is the switch that goes USB and U-boot. I wonder what that means. And just flipping it over, it says to not touch it and don't throw in the bin. Try not to. WX1 Pro is what this is called, so that may help us in finding custom firmware for this. If we flick that switch to U-boot, what does that do? I did break the casing trying to get into it, but I had no other choice. So I've connected it to an external monitor, I've switched it to U-boot, and it booted into the game station. So what that switch essentially does is disables USB input. So now if I flick that switch back, yep, I get USB. All that switch serves is to switch USB on and off. You've got plenty of room in here if you wanted to do some modifications and actually put a Raspberry Pi in here, you can. This case is a lot more better to do that than the GS5 that I looked at. You could also upgrade and put extra RAM in there too for the performance upgrade. Yeah, I'll just pop that back down. Yeah, it fits. Perfect. Factory. Now it's factory. Very interesting to see the innards of this. That speaker is definitely there to add more weight, that's for sure, because without that speaker, this thing would be light as a feather. But man, that's interesting though, that it actually has a switch on the motherboard. Wasn't expecting that. But maybe that's to do with something else and I'm just not quite seeing it. But as I said, let me see if I can do some custom firmware on this. And if that works and I get better gaming performance, I'm more than happy to do a follow-up on this. And as I said, if you want to see a follow-up with the GameStick on how it performs now with RetroArch, I'm happy to make that video video because I tried it last night and I was amazed that it could actually run games as well as it could. But that's this thing from AliExpress, Wish, Temu, and all other dodgy sites. You'll find this 4K console for about $70 Australian. Not worth it in its current state, but maybe it can have a new lease on life if you have some custom firmware for it. The Game Stick Lite had much better value at $30. You'll have to tell me in the comments if you've used one of these consoles before, because I knew there were more bootleg PS5 looking things, apart from the GS5 that I've already looked at. So it was just interesting to take a look at it to see what it does, and well, I found that out today, that it's pretty underwhelming for what it is. But anyways, folks, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for sticking around and watching this silly video with me taking a look at another cheapo console. I hope you did enjoy it, but if you had to use the timestamps to skip along past certain segments of this video, that is completely fine, that's all good. Just a very rambly and chill video with me taking a look at these cheapo products. I buy these things so you don't have to, but I enjoy looking at cheap garbage products. It's just so much fun. I definitely get a good laugh when I look at something and see very poorly translated English and stuff. It just makes me smile, makes me appreciate it. And also, if you needed to use AdBlock to skip the automatically added ads into the video that advertising adds into ads, just AdBlock, or yeah, you're good. Now that I can't review the Powkiddy, I'll stuff around with that and see if I can get it working again, but I'll put it in my to-do later pile. There's reviews already out there for the Powkiddy, so I'm pretty sure people have already covered everything that can be done about this, as well as custom firmware, so it's not such a big deal, but I'm sure people would have liked to have seen it anyways, but it's just unfortunate that it just kind of died and that's it. I can't do terribly much about it. But leave it with me, I'll see how I go. I've got some plans for some upcoming videos and stuff, so stay tuned. And I also have ordered 2 other lots of stuff from Temu, but there's like clothes in there and just some oddball little things here and there. So I don't know if you want to see that video of me unboxing both of them, but if you want to as well, let me know. I'm happy to just film myself just rambling along and opening up cheapo products and seeing what they're like. But otherwise, let me know what you thought of this one down in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you got a kick out of seeing this thing in action and seeing the innards of this, but I don't think we're finished with it just yet. Let's see if we can improve performance on this thing. Thank you once again for watching. I really do appreciate it. And as always, please take care, stay safe, be good people, and I'll see you all in the next video, which could be anything at this point in time. Got a lot of plans, and if you want me to do things, I'll do things, and we can just make it happen. But until I can make it happen, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. If you like this content, feel free to leave a like or a dislike if you didn't. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.